Imagine you or a loved one needs an operation, perhaps a hip replacement or a hernia repaired, and the hospital tells you that they won't perform the surgery unless you or your loved one lose weight. Now, this radical withdrawal of treatment has been talked about for quite a while, but it's actually happening in some hospitals in Yorkshire now, and it could be rolled out nationwide. So is it a good idea, or is this something that you think maybe penalises people with problems? Because it's very easy, Janet, isn't it, to go like, oh, you know, they're overweight, it's their own fault, they shouldn't be allowed an operation. But some people who are obese have problems.
Yeah, they have many conditions, underlying conditions, which might make them overweight, which has got nothing to do with eating or lifestyle at all. It could be glandular, it could be all sorts of medical things. So I looked into this, and I found out that in this part of Yorkshire, if you don't give up smoking, for several months, you could be forced to wait 6 months for surgery. And if you're overweight, that's people with a BMI of 30 or over, you're going to be asked to lose 10% of your body weight before you will get surgery, or you'll have to wait a further 12 months. So that's really serious.
It is very serious, but there will be people, because we talk about it quite often on here, there will be people that say, well, you know, it is a lifestyle choice, and you smoke, and, you know, smoking and obesity, you know, costs the national health millions, billions sometimes. You know, why should those people be allowed treatment when they're effectively sometimes killing themselves?
Yeah,
I know there will be people watching saying that, particularly about smoking.
I agree with you, but the NHS isn't exactly thinking through things logically. There's a load of unjoined up thinking here, because only the other day we had a woman who's the head of the doctors now saying that she thought that telling people to eat 5 pieces of fruit and vegetables a day wasn't really a kind of good proposition anymore, because the poorer families couldn't afford 5 pieces of fruit and veg a day, and she was suggesting we downgrade it to eating only a couple a day. Now that seems to me to be ridiculous, because at the heart of a lot of people's obesity issues is diet and attitudes to food, and we've got to, you know, deal with that.
It's about education.
Well,
so
yeah,
I think that's, for me, is penalising people. Now there are people that just overeat and they're enormous, and you know, that is self-inflicted. However, I think a lot of it is people don't intentionally do that. A lot of people aren't educated with food. I think the food industry has a lot to answer for, where everything's full of sugar, teaspoons and teaspoons full of sugar.
With my kids, they're so young, and you want to set them on the right path. And I find it, you know, very conflicting, the things. It's like, first it was like, you shouldn't eat fat, so they put sugar in everything. So everything was low fat, but with tons of sugar. And now everything's gluten-free. But what you don't know about the gluten-free is that they replace the gluten with sugar. So, you know, you kind of, there's this matrix of all these things that you can get tricked into, and at the end of the day, you think you're eating healthy, and you're not, and you're poisoning yourself, which I think is horrible. I mean, there's so many people that are misguided on how to eat healthy, even when their intention is good.
But people were healthier before healthy food.
I feel like since the diet industry happened, I think people are more obese since the diet industry happened. There's so many mixed messages. And also this new proposition I also find very conflicting, because, you know, it's like then you can have someone who's morbidly obese and you'll give them gastric bypass surgery. But if they try and address the problem before it even gets to that stage, now they'll be refused any help.
But I think your point was totally valid, Ruth. I think, number one, we just live in a society where it's so accepted to fat-shame people that even the government is doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is ridiculous. And I think the other thing here is, at the end of the day, it is a mental health problem. What we need to do is deal with it at the start and find out why people are doing these sorts of things and why we're making choices that are not healthy or beneficial to us. And
what about... We've seen stories of children who are really obese, and people will say, you know, they should be taken away. They should be taken away from those families.
Absolutely disagree with that. Madness.
Because there was a very revealing article in one of the colour magazines at the weekend which looked at children who were obese, and it analysed the relationship they had with their parents. And in none of the cases could you say that the mothers were absolutely aiding or abusing those children. And one of the mothers, I was in tears over the fact this mum was making her child healthy, packed lunches, and that kid was sneaking and eating everywhere. And in you just cannot demonise and blame.
And that's why when I come back to this story, you know, I understand it I do understand the premise, but actually, to me, it's like a punishment, and I don't think punishment actually helps anybody. So that's like saying you've been very naughty, and therefore we're not going to give you your operation. You'll have to wait. And I think you've got to address that problem.
But you know what, Ruth? If they're going to penalise fat people, as June said earlier, why aren't they saying, yeah, you go skiing, you've got to pay a top up on the national health for when you
jump
break
out
your
of the
leg.
plane.
You jump out of the plane
If you thought that got heated, wait until you watch these and click here to subscribe. You may as well. It's totally free.